Did you know your brain lies to you all the time? Do you believe in common sense? Did you know every memory you have is as likely to be imagined as it is to be real? In the first video in this series, we explored what memory is and how our brains take in new information. I hope you already watched the first part of this series. A lot of what you learn in that video is important to understand the concepts discussed here. In this video, we'll learn why your mind is unreliable, and then we'll discuss the overwhelmingly important concept of false memories and how they have an outsized impact on everyday life. As always, there are chapters in the description below that will let you skip to any section you want. If you're new here at the Xennial Philosopher, welcome, and I hope you'll come back to my channel so you can continue to expand your mind alongside me. I need to warn you, this is a difficult journey. Our brains are full of safety mechanisms that keep us happy and oblivious. People do more unconsciously in a second than they could do in a whole day consciously. But our brains are very good at making us believe that we are in charge. This is why people can so vehemently stick to beliefs and concepts that make so little sense to outsiders. This is precisely why it is so critical to understand what perception and memory really are. But I can't claim it will be easy. Stories we tell ourselves and others. All the memories stored in our brains, even the clearest ones that pop up constantly, are inaccurate. In fact, the more times you remember something, the less likely that memory is accurate. This happens because our brains are just an exceedingly complex network of connections and electrical impulses. The process of recalling a memory is what scientists call cognitive reconstruction. Basically, that means that each time you recall a memory, you are adding new biases and ideas, and with each subsequent recall, you are moving further from the truth and into fantasy. Dr. Julia Shaw released a book in 2016 called The Memory Illusion. This book combines decades of academic and scientific research into a surprisingly entertaining read. She has spent her career studying false memories and working to understand better how this phenomenon works.
The question isn't, do we have false memories? It's how false are our memories?
After her work with the Innocence Project, she and some colleagues began to research the method by which false memories are formed and to understand better how they impact our perceptions. In one study, the researchers gathered a group of university student volunteers and began talking to their parents to find out about some significant events in the subject's childhood. They then requested photographs from the families of these events. The researchers picked two actual events for which they now had photographic proof and made up an event for which they invented evidence using Photoshop. Without fail, they were able to convince their research participants that the made-up events happened. These were events that were not only unlikely, but were virtually impossible.
I convinced people that they committed crimes or had other emotional experiences that never happened.
For example, there was one photo of a subject meeting Bugs Bunny at Disney World. As you may or may not know, Bugs Bunny is a Warner Brothers property and would never have been seen in a Disney park. In another example, they convinced the subject that they had been to England specifically to have dinner with the royal family, complete with pictures of the subject with the Queen Mother and Prince Charles.
And what could have been turns into what would have been, turns into what was.
At the end of this study, researchers could say without hesitation that implanting false memories in a subject is, at best, a trivial task.
I was incredibly surprised at the rate that I had in terms of successfully implanting these false memories.
Another subject Dr. Shaw covers in depth in her book is how to get through to subjects and how to make things memorable. In short, it comes down to arousal, not to be confused with sexual arousal. In brain science, arousal is defined by the online medical dictionary as a state of responsiveness to sensory stimuli or excitability, or a state of behavioral or psychologic activation. In other words, your brain is active. This is a powerful tool we can all use to improve how other people react to training, awareness, and other important things we need them to know. Make sure you check out Dr. Shaw's book and TED Talks, linked in the description, to learn more. Next, we'll talk about another major issue we humans face all day, every day: decision making. Our brains might be more evolved than animal brains, but they were still evolved from them. In a tense moment, fight or flight instincts will take over. Some people are a little better at recognizing these effects and somewhat better at offsetting them, but decades of study demonstrate that decisions made by people are as likely to be logical as the flip of a coin. As long as people have had something to be scammed off of them, others have taken advantage of our natural stupidity. Scams in general are nothing new, and neither is the desire to understand better why we're so terrible at sensing these dangers. Interestingly, according to a lot of psychological experimentation and research, one of the biggest reasons we're so terrible at identifying scams is the part of our brains we most closely share with animals. The fight or flight part of our minds is the mechanism that makes us jump to conclusions, make assumptions, and see patterns that don't exist. We then confidently use this misinformation to make decisions, causing many of the daily problems that humanity faces. Our emotions and physical impulses control this part of our brain. We cannot work on logic when this mechanism is activated. We are as likely to pick the logical choice as the less optimal one. This mechanism is technically the cause of all the choices we make. Even simple ones like what to eat or what to watch on YouTube. Despite any amount of planning and logic we put into our decision-making process, at the moment of decision, all that goes out the window, and our subconsciouses will simply pick the option that has the least chance of causing regret. This is problematic in so many ways. For one, none of us are safe. This is a condition that affects every single living human. To shine some light on that, let's take a look at a groundbreaking discovery that a neuroscientist named Antonio Damasio made a few years back. He and his team were studying the part of the brain that generates emotions in people, using subjects who had suffered brain damage to that part of their brain. These subjects were able to see logic behind simple decisions easily. They could even come to reasonable and optimal conclusions. But only in theory. In their minds, they could do it. They could even discuss their plans and their logic. However, in almost every case, at the actual point of decision, they came up short. These individuals could not make decisions, not just on whether to buy a house or some other significant life choice. Instead, simple, constant decisions we all face, such as what to eat or what time to go to bed at night, were all significant challenges for these people. This illustrates that despite all our logic and careful metrics, our emotional system takes over and delivers the choice that it feels is most likely to result in the least amount of regret. When it boils down to the actual point of decision, emotions control all our decision making. Much of the foundational research related to these concepts was done by a psychologist named Daniel Kahneman alongside his colleague and friend Amos Tversky. Kahneman was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics despite his being a psychologist, specifically for his research into the psychology of decision-making. It's simple to see how this research can be related to the field of economics. Really, it can be tied to many industries such as marketing, security, and warfare. Kahneman and Tversky's insights were a major wake-up call for the world of economics when they first started publishing their findings. Before this, economists based their predictions on the idea that people would make rational decisions. By embracing the decision theory that Kahneman and Tversky developed, they were able to completely change their model to account for the fact that common sense, as it were, is nothing more than a fallacy and has nothing to do with the reality of our irrational minds or the choices we make. Common sense is about as real as rational decisions. Annette Simmons, the author of The Story Factor, another book I highly recommend, has a great and fitting quote. People are unconscious of most of their behavioral choices. If you ask someone why they did something, they will give you a good reason. A good, rational-sounding reason. That has nothing to do with the real reason. As a rule, humans aren't aware of even making choices, much less why we make the choices we make. We do something that way because it seems obvious. We've always done it that way. Someone told us long ago to do it that way, or we consider it the right thing to do. Once a habit is put in place, it rarely comes up for review. There's no such thing as common sense. Stop saying that, stop expecting it, stop thinking about it. Every single person is different. Their brains do not work the same as yours. You don't even really know them, at least not the real them. These revelations, among many others that Kahneman and Tversky came up with that we don't have time to discuss in this video, were the reason for the recent renaissance of economics, a paradigm shift in the art of negotiation, and changes in how policy is written, among many other things these insights have impacted. If you want to learn more about decision-making, I recommend Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, in particular. False memories and their impact on society. Human memory, while remarkable, is inherently unreliable, and our tendency to trust it is the cause of many of the problems we face in society today. Fortunately, we have had a long line of amazingly insightful scientists and academics who have spent much of their lives studying human memory. Because of this, the common misconceptions about our memory shouldn't be so prevalent. But they are. I can confidently tell you, based on their insights, that you can rely on your computer's memory far beyond your own. And any of you who have worked in IT knows that's a scary thought. Our memories being trusted as an agent of the truth is one of the biggest misconceptions about memory there is. An organization called the Innocence Project is dedicated to helping innocent people become exonerated. They've found surprising success with the use of DNA testing. According to their website, they've helped release at least 245 wrongfully convicted people from prison. Their statistics also say that these 245 innocent people served on average over 15 years, adding up to a disturbing total of 3,826 years that these people spent wrongfully incarcerated. According to Dr. Julia Shaw, faulty memory played a role in at least 75% of those cases. And that is just in the US in cases where DNA is available.
Now, what happens in these situations is that 70% of the participants ultimately come to accept this alternate reality.
As you can imagine, there are probably a lot more people out there serving time in prison for crimes they did not commit. Memory is all too often characterized as an accurate method of recalling an event. But, like I explained in the last video, our perception is unique to each of us, so my remembrance of an event will be different from anyone else's. To better understand what I'm talking about, let's discuss a famous bit of research into memory and attention. At the turn of the century, two cognitive psychologists, Daniel Simmons and Christopher Chabris, did a study to prove that when people focus hard enough on one thing, they get what's called inattentional blindness. In this study, participants were shown a video of a group of people passing a ball around. They were asked to count the number of times the ball was passed by one of the teams. Immediately after watching the video, they were asked how many passes were made, and almost universally, they were accurate in their count. However, after this initial question, they were asked a series of questions about other aspects of the video. One of those questions was whether they had seen a gorilla enter the scene partway through. Most of the subjects were confused, and many asked, "Why would I have seen a gorilla?" But a gorilla, or an actor in a gorilla suit, did walk into the scene partway through. The participants were so engrossed in counting passes that they missed something so obvious and strange as a gorilla entering the room. This study has significant implications for witness and victims in cases where there is no other corroborating evidence. We often misremember even the most unique things we see, and frequently, we add details that we imagine. This study is the epitome of the counterintuitive nature of our minds. In polls, since this research was publicized, over 90% of respondents said they believed they would have seen the gorilla. Conclusion. So now you hopefully see how memories aren't the indelible pieces of history we seem to consider them. So next time someone challenges your recall of an event, remember you weren't the only one there, and not everyone saw or experienced the same things. Maybe before you disagree with someone or get into a heated argument, you could consider their perspective. If you're willing to accept that your memories and viewpoints are not the only ones in the world, it can only make your interactions and relationships better. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. I sincerely hope you learned something here and will be even happier if you gained a new perspective on other human beings. I truly believe that if more people considered others' perspectives and accepted that they are equally as likely to be wrong, then the world could truly be a better place for everyone. What did you think about these concepts? Do you plan to learn more from the resources below? Did you hear something today that you'd like me to do a full video on? Let me know in the comments, and if your interest has been piqued by any of the subjects covered here on the Xennial Philosopher, make sure you check out the references and links to the related videos and articles in the description. If you didn't subscribe to the channel yet, don't forget so you won't miss out on new videos to expand your mind and grow your perception.